That's right. Hello, world, and welcome. Welcome to another great presentation of the program, Ashford, Garley Live on Bridge Radio Africa. Today is Wednesday, the 14th of December, 2022. And first up, as always, Father God, we come to you tonight with depth of gratitude. To you alone, take all the glory. We give you praise, we give you honor, we magnify your name. Be that glorified, be that magnified, and be that exalted. In the name of Jesus, we have given thanks and we have prayed. Folks, a word of introduction. This is the brother who doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. The medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of Liberia, the mastermind, the doctor of love, Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire. Yours truly, Ashford the Giant, and now you know me, Garley. Welcome. And that's right, you might want to share the video, invite a few friends, so that we can together have a great time tonight. We have a special guest in the house. Somebody who could be the next president of Liberia. The son of the soil from River G, County Liberia. You might want to listen. You might want to tell a friend. Share the video. So tonight, the Reverend Dr. Paul S. WESAY is our special guest. Let me see if we can get in Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts. Mrs. Roberts, will you please unmute your microphone and welcome to the show. Mrs. Roberts, are you there? Okay. Mrs. Roberts is still not up yet for the show. Well, folks, again, welcome back. This platform belongs to all of you. This platform belongs to Liberia. It belongs to the Liberian people. So whatever institution or whatever political institution you represent, you are welcome to this platform. Again, I'm going to make this clear. We are not in support of any particular political party. We support Liberia and we support the people of Liberia. So if you are from the CDC and you have something to say, this is your platform. If you are from the opposition and have something to say, this is your platform. If you come from the independent bloc and you have something to say, this is also your platform. Because I know us Liberians, we quit to run judgment. None of these politicians or political parties can buy Ashford Garley. And that's why I will continue to support Liberia and support the people of Liberia. Because most of the politicians are not good. They are all about themselves. They will say one thing. The next thing you know, by the time they get elected, they change. So I want a peaceful Liberia. I want a Liberia free of corruption. I want a Liberia free of secret killings. I want Liberia free of harassment and intimidation. I want to go to Liberia and run Bridge Radio Africa independently with no fear or favor. I don't have to be a member of any political party or any political group. I want to leave from here and go home and enjoy my radio and TV station like everybody else. And that's why we are not going to join any political party. With that said, folks, very shortly, we are going to introduce our special guest. Grab something to drink, invite a few friends so that we can together have a great time. And tonight we have Grace Faconia. We'll also see Charlie Jackson. Smith Dawiet is also here tonight. And I see Philip Paswa. I see Gregory Stern, Sandro B. Johnson. He represented no position in Liberian politics as well. I see Monique Shen. Monique Shen is also here. Listen, man, I would set up something for Monique Shen. Something happened at the hotel yesterday in Washington D.C. I saw the video. I was very disturbed by the video. But then again, we have to get both sides of the story. Monique Shen claimed that he was denied entry at the hall where President Weah was at. And on the contrary, they say he went and started to make trouble. And Monique Shen is my longtime friend, the general. I don't know this guy to be a troublemaker. But again, the sedition, according to them, said they invited the UP, they invited ANC, they invited everybody. Why would they kick him out? That's a big question. And somebody will have to dive into. So I will go the platform to Monique Shen and also that of the guys at the CDC, the Prince Sharif, and so that they can come in and clear both sides. Okay. Now, with that said, folks, let me introduce our special guest tonight. Hello, Ward. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to introduce to you the Reverend Dr. Paul S. WESAY. Reverend WESAY, hello and welcome to Bridge Radio Africa.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Garley. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Who is Paul S. WESAY? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, my Liberian people. Let me speak my Liberia thing. My name is Reverend Dr. Paul S. WESAY, here from River G County. My father was a hunter. My mother was a small market woman. I started my primary education at Mumbletown Elementary School in Douala. When the war broke out, my dad had to send us to the village because the city was overpopulated as always. And we were in a village for a few years and there was no education in the village. So my mother thought it wise that we move over to the Ivory Coast in 1993, where I attended the Adra Tabu 2 high school. 98, when I was promoted to grade 11, I returned to Liberia to attend my favorite high school, William V.S. Tubman High School, because my oldest brother had graduated from there. My auntie also graduated from there. I heard all the good news about Tubman High. And so when I arrived in Liberia, that was when the September 18th happened. And we almost went back to the Ivory Coast, my older brother and myself. And when I was promoted to grade 12, things were so difficult, hard on me. I could barely find food to eat, Mr. Garley, to the point where I took sick. I was hospitalized at GFK and I almost died, So when that happened, I returned to the Ivory Coast where I completed high school. I graduated from Adra Tabu 2 in 2000. And then in 2003, as God would have had it, my auntie, along with the Fifth Lutheran Church of Canada, sponsored me to Canada in 2004, where I pursued my first degree in economics. And I worked with the Manitoba government as a social worker for 8 years. And in 2013, I crossed over to the United States, where I married my high school sweetheart, Princess WESAY, and we are blessed with 4 children. And I furthered my education. Today, I'm a graduate in business administration, also a graduate of Barney Fletcher School of Real Estate. And currently, I hold an active real estate license from the Georgia Real Estate Commission. Also, I'm the owner and CEO of Paul WESAY Realty LLC. I'm also the owner of Paul and Princess Trucking LLC. And I also work as a real estate consultant. I sell both commercial and residential real estate in the state of Georgia. I'm also the senior pastor and founder of Divine Guidance International Ministry, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia.
Now, Reverend, we say, folks watching right now in the diaspora will say, why we haven't heard about you? And why British Radio? British Radio was off for 2 years. We just got back. There are big platforms. There are people everywhere that are doing the same thing that we do. This is just a Willa market. Other people have a supermarket. This is just a small little Kenny platform. Why you chose to come to British Radio?
Mr. Garley, is several reasons. First of all, I actually appreciate, your professionalism, the way you conduct journalism and media. I believe we need more of you. That is why when you left the air, to be quite honest, my wife and I, we've been praying for you, and it was my prayer that God will bring you back before the 2023 presidential election. I'm glad that you are back, and this is the platform of choice. It's not that because of any reason that you support me or whatever, but I believe that journalism should be done in such a way that you speak to the issues, and you are as fair as possible. And what I've been able to see across the other media platforms is, they pretend they actually back another political parties. They are free to do that, but I believe that they should be giving candidates and guests, the chance to express their views, not attack them. And that is why I've chosen your platform. So please keep it that way. Be professional, and I believe that God is going to take you to higher heights.
Now, speaking of Liberia, with the complexity of Liberia, what makes you think you are the guy to bring that change that Liberia needs? I mean, what have you done so far in Liberia, of which you think you are the guy to make that difference?
Well, let me begin with scripture. The Bible says in Proverbs 29, verse 2, it says, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the evil rule, the opposite. So I don't need to prophesy. What's happening in Liberia right now, it's photo evidence of who's in charge, who's ruling. Whether it's the righteous or is the evil one, you be the judge. Most importantly, I've done extensive work in Liberia as a business person. I've said that I will never invest a dime into something that I know is not going to yield a return. Okay, so it was 2020. Let me be clear with you, all of you, the viewers tonight. Growing up, I came from a very humble background. Okay, there were times that my parents fell short of our tuitions, and we were kicked out of schools, and we had to go sell things like plastic bag, a Duca Flare, around Waterside and Douala and what have you. So I was not born in America, okay? And this journey was not born out of ambition. This is not ambition to say, oh, because God has blessed me, I achieved this, I accomplished that. The next thing now, I'm power thirsty. I want to be president of Liberia. That's not what it is. This is. So what happened was in 2020, during the pandemic, Mr. Garley, I was in my room. I was lying on the bed. I was not asleep. And I heard an audible voice says, prepare yourself for the Liberian presidency. And I woke up and I was like, who? Me, I'm nobody, you know. And I know that that was the voice of God speaking. So I knelt down by the bedside and I began to weep. Like, who am I? So when I prayed, and then I received that revelation to write this book. This is my vision for Liberia. This book is published, it's sold on Amazon, it's sold on the world of books, whatever books are sold in the United States and around the world. So that's how this journey actually began. And I began to pray, looking at the task at hand. It takes resources. And most importantly, I have a very young family. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It will take a lot of sacrifice. So as I was preparing, I got a call from back home in Liberia, because I used to go to Liberia occasionally, you know, hand out things, not with the intention of seeking power or anything. I was just doing humanitarian work. And it had happened that a good friend of mine called me and said, like, a group of Liberians have come together, you know, and they think that you will make a better president. You'll make a great president to turn the page from this dark chapter and to usher our country into a prosperous future. So they organized themselves and they named the group Friends of WESAY. Friends of WESAY. So they decided to petition me. It was in June of this year, June the 16th. My wife and I, we arrived in Liberia. We were met at the Rivers International Airport. We attended the petition ceremony. And that was where I accepted the petition of the Liberian people. Now, Mr. Garley, with what's happening in our country today, that is why during my my acceptance speech, I said that our nation is in a state of emergency. And what is required of us now is to act with a sense of urgency. And let me say this, there is no amount of education, no amount of fame can solve Liberia's problem. Liberia's problem will only be solved with the divine intervention of God Almighty and with a leader who has the heart for the people, a leader who fears God Almighty. That's the only way we're going to have peace. That's the only way we're going to have a prosperous and better Liberia where we can live side by side in peace and harmony.
Now, Reverend, we said, which political party do you represent or are you a member of?
I'm not a member of any political party because I believe that partisan politics had not done our country any good. So I will be running as an independent presidential candidate. Now, I know there's many questions that come with that. Many people will say historically an independent candidate had never won the Liberian presidency. Oh, yeah, that's true. But there is a constitutional provision that allows an individual to contest the Liberian presidency as an independent. And I believe what Liberia needs right now is not partisan politics. The country is so polarized and divided right now. So I believe that we need an independent candidate who can govern from the middle. I want to lead from the middle. I want to build bridges. I don't want to build walls. I want to be able to bring our politicians together, to work together and build a more prosperous Liberia where there's quality healthcare, there's quality education, our roads are paved, we have modern infrastructure. I also have a robust plan to make sure that we are investing into agriculture and manufacturing, to make sure that we are creating jobs. And more importantly, for us to be able to grow our own food, like rice. I predicted in my book, rice shortage. Now, this is the rice shortage situation falls under national security. That is why my number one priority is going to be national security, because tied into national security is the Liberia's economy. And that is why I believe that with all of these things, we can work together. As a people, I know no single individual can solve our nation's problem. It will require our collective effort. That is why I believe that I don't want to be a part of any political party because it brings limitation.
But you just said no individual. You have to work collectively. Now, do you intend to collaborate with other political parties? If yes, what are the possibilities?
Well, I will. I am definitely open to work with political parties because that's the way forward. But let me say this, Mr. Garley. What I will not do is I will not compromise my principles, my Christian faith. I will not compromise my values. I will not compromise, any of my ethical principles that will, prevent me from delivering the goods our country desperately needs. So any politician that is corrupt, any politician that has been sanctioned, or any politician that have been found guilty of corruption in our country, I can say this to you definitively. I cannot work with you, because what good is it going to produce? The same end result: corruption, corruption, corruption. And at the end of the day, the Liberian people will be the victims.
It has been rumored that you are inexperienced and don't have the requisite qualifications to run for president or to be the president of Liberia. How do you respond?
Well, what I say is there is no level of education. There is not a university that you have to go to that train presidents. There's something I call skills that are transformative skills. Okay, skills that you acquired over the years. For instance, as a pastor, I mentor people. I work as a social worker. Okay, I've dealt with challenges in communities confronting families and youth. Today, when you look in Liberia today, you see our youth, our young people, they are on drugs, and we give them name. We call them so-called Zogos. Now, that's government failure. I believe it is the solemn obligation and responsibility of the Liberian government to clean up after war. War can be so costly and expensive. Now, during the war, they invested into the purchase of ammunition and arms and all of that. Now, that's not the end of the expenses of war. After war, we have to clean up. We have to build rehabilitation centers. We have to rehabilitate those ex-combatants. We have to make sure that they have access to medical care. Because if we don't do those things, Mr. Garley, guess what? These people pose serious national security threat to our country. Now, on the 17th, as you already know, these people are going to be protesting. They're going to be having a rally, or whatever way you want to call it. It's because they are disenchanted. The government did not follow up with its responsibility to take care of these people. As a result, that's what's going to happen. I was just in Liberia. I've been there for 5 months now. I just came here for a visit in the United States. I'll be going back. Now, you come to understand that, Mr. Garley, right now, the Liberian people, they are suffering. There are millions who will go to bed tonight on empty stomach. There are thousands in the hospitals tonight, no care. If you don't have the money, you are going to die. There's so much, the situation is so deplorable now that I cannot turn my back on the Liberian people to say, oh yes, I'm here in the United States, I'm enjoying life. What good is it? If my children can eat whatever they want, and a child in Liberia, in some kind of slum, doesn't have food to eat, I'm not pleased. If a pregnant woman will go to hospital and be turned down, that she'll be lying on the floor because she doesn't have money, they can't turn to her. And my wife here, she has whatever she wants. I'm still not fulfilled. I believe God blesses us so that we can be able to share the blessing. And that is why I believe it is time that Liberia embraces as a Christian leader. Liberia embraces a God-fearing leader to steer us out of this political dark period.
Well, it is possible that you may be running against several others, looking at each of the possible opponent weaknesses. How are you better than George Weah, Elizana Cummings, Joseph Boyka, and Tiawan Gonglo?
Well, with the list of the people you just mentioned, let me say this. I respect the achievement, the accomplishment, and the courage of President Weah, why he was able to accomplish throughout his career on the football field, and thus far what he was able to accomplish as president. But in my view, I think that presidency, the Weah presidency, was a great mistake. I said this, without any apology. I'm from Liberia. I see the suffering of the people. We have a president who is completely out of touch with the Liberian people. President Weah is completely out of touch with Liberian people. I don't think he deserves a second chance. You would think that given where he came from, he had a very little beginning like I did. You would think that, he was supposed to change the lives of the Liberian people. That was the expectation of the Liberian people for which they voted for him. It was done because of what he gave them. The Liberian people are very decent people. It's not about what he gave them, and they voted for him. Now, when it comes to Alexander Cummings, I respect Cummings a lot. He's a cool guy. I thought I was smaller. I thought I was short. But my first time seeing Cummings, it was probably when I was leaving Liberia the same day when I boarded the plane, and there he was.
So are you seeing Cummings is taller than you?
Oh no! Come on.
If Cummings taller than you, then you read a shuttle.
No. I'm short, but I have body than Cummings, and I'm a little taller than him. Okay. But he's a cool guy. We can work together. We can work something out to make sure that everybody has something to offer. That is why I believe I can work. I'm the only person who can work with other politicians across the aisle and get Liberia across that finish line. With Gongolo, I have a great respect for Mr. Gongolo. I had a lot of good things about him. That's somebody that I can work with. Even when I was in Liberia, when I accepted my petition, and my container was kept at the port by the Liberian government, okay? A daughter of mine, a spiritual daughter of mine, even recommended that I contact Mr. Gongolo. It was in that same period that fortunately we were able to get the container out. So he's a good man. I watched the interview with him the last time. I like him. I think he's a good guy. With Mr. Boakai, I have a whole lot of respect for Mr. Boakai. But what I believe now is that Mr. Garley, the next 6 years, the next president, I believe age is going to be a factor. The current state of our country demands a president who is more energetic, a president who is ready to work overtime. And I think we should retire Mr. Boakai honorably and pay him, livable retirement benefits. And he could be an advisor or something, And looking at who's left, did I touch everybody?
I think you did.
Yes. So, yes, I have a great respect for Mr. Boakai, and I believe I can work with all of these people to, for the betterment of our country.
Okay. Now, Reverend, we have some unsolved training issues. Please give us your views on these. 3 dead young men, 4 murdered auditors, 3 Liberian National Police officers, flocking of university students, and flocking of journalists. What is your take?
Well, Mr. Garley, I believe that, Scripture tells us that righteousness and justice are the foundation of the throne of God. I believe with respect to the 3 dead men, at the time I was following the show, they were then, referred to as 3 missing men. But eventually, the narrative changed. And as I followed that story, I'm still reminded of the time where the parents had clues of where those men were. And I believe that President Weah should have come out, and supposed to have risen up to the occasion. If I was the sitting president then, these men would not have died. These men would not have died. When things like this happen, Mr. Garley, it becomes so personal to me because, during the Liberian Civil War, my oldest brother, Jonah Wilson, he played for Young Survivors. He played for Mighty Barrow, and he was called to the Liberian national team just, prior to the war, just before the war. He was murdered in Liberia. His body was left in the streets. And as I speak to you today, he has no grave. So every time I hear about people murder and no justice, it becomes personal to me. That is what I even want to meet the family of these 3 men to console them. And I can rest assured, Mr. Garley, I will be the president who will reopen all of these cases to make sure that we employ the latest forensic technologies and the latest forensic methodology to ensure that these people get closure, they get justice. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Now, with respect to the auditors, that was fishy. These people were murdered with only justice being promised. I promise you, Mr. Garley, if I am elected, if I'm blessed enough to win the hearts, the minds, and the hearts of the Liberian people, and they find it fit to make me the next commander-in-chief and president of the great Republic of Liberia, I can assure you we will get to the bottom of this and justice will be served. Now, with respect to the flogging of the university students, I believe that these people, their internationally agreed human rights were violated. I think that's wrong. They have the right to assemble. In as much as they are not violent, you can't touch them. So all of these issues, you mentioned something else. What was the fourth one?
I think you touched them. The three missing boys, the flogging of journalists.
Right, journalists and all of that. That's just absurd. We have to have a country where democracy flourishes and nobody interferes, with the rule of law. We have to respect all of these democratic principles and values for our country to be able to move forward. I totally oppose intimidation tactics like the one I experienced in Liberia when my container arrived. And this I will say to you, Mr. Garley, in Liberia today, there's no justice. There's no justice. There's no justice in our country. The same investigators, they pretend as if they are trying to solve the situation. The young man who ate $29,000 of my money, he was brought in my compound by the NSA.
I mean, how did he eat $29,000 of your money? Liberian dollars?
United States dollars.
What? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so this is what happened. So my wife and I, we decided to attend the petition ceremony in Liberia. So we shipped a container. I had my cars. I had 3 cars in there. There was a small Toyota for my mother-in-law and my wife's mom. And then I had my Cadillac Escalade in there. And I had my Ram truck. So I wanted to use those vehicles to tour the capital and see all over the country. So what happened was we had to use the broker. According to the system they put in place, you have to work with a broker to clear your container. So this broker was recommended to us by a friend. Okay. So we shipped the container. The container actually arrived in Liberia a week before the 16th of June. So we were hoping that immediately after the petition, we will get the vehicles out to be able to tour the capital and and see all across the country and all of that. Now, what happened was I sent my campaign manager to go and call this broker. So he called the broker over to my office in Congo Town. So he came to my office. He didn't know that I was going to be contesting in the race. So when he got there, he saw the sign of the building. He entered my office. He saw securities all around. Apparently, he left and then he went to the WEA camp, the CDC government, and said, "Oh, this guy who was on Front Page Africa and was on the radio, I was just at his office. I have his container." So they work with him to delay my container, Mr. Garley. For 4 months, my wife and I, we slept on the mattress because my compound is newly built, So I emptied my house in the States here and sent all the furniture there. So we had no furniture. I didn't want to buy furniture because I had a whole lot of furniture coming for me. So for 4 months, we were there sleeping on the mattress, waiting for the container to be clear. NSA got involved. Now, this guy was arrested, Mr. Garley, only to see the NSA was sent from the executive mansion. The police arrested him, and while investigation was going on, my son, my nephew called me, who lives with me, because he was the one that they were the one going out. I can't go to those places and things like that. He said NSA came. They came from the executive mansion and took this guy and carried him away. So my wife and I, we have to find additional money because he said that my Cadillac Escalade alone was $8,000 to clear that. We gave him that money. And the rest of the other things were another $8,000. The other cars and the furniture were $8,000. So there was $16,000. So now we have to find money again our own money to
So
clear
besides the
the container.
$9,000, you had to find somebody else to release your.
Exactly. So we have to find another broker and clear the container. And it's kind of so sad. All I'm trying to do is to help. I don't mean evil. I don't want to get into dirty politics. I don't want to get sucked into the smallness of Liberian politics, insulting people. By far, everyone, President Weah, Cummings, Boakai, Gongolo, by far, they're all older than I am. And I was raised by a disciplinarian. My mother, she would not permit me to even insult a friend, my age group. And these people, they are all older than I am. So I'm not going to get, sucked into all of that. They want to make me bitter, but I'm not going to be bitter. I'm going to do what I say I would do. I'm going to run a whole different style of politics that is based solely on the issues. I'm not going to be personal with anybody.
Well, folks, if you're just joining us, this is Bridge Radio Africa. This is Ashford Garley Live. We have with us tonight the Reverend Dr. Paul S. WESAY. He's contesting the presidency. He wants to be the next president of Liberia. And Reverend WESAY has been working in Liberia. As a matter of fact, he has chapters in all 15 counties. Not only that, folks, they have a song made in his honor. So we're going to listen to that song now. And folks, let us take a listen to the song made for the Reverend Weah. And as we play the song, this show is your show. We have our little cash app up there. Any number can win. So let's listen to the song.
We say that Paul, we say, I see future coming. I see the light to development. I see infrastructure coming to life. And people who you want, that's what we say. That's what we say. For development, that's what we say. That's what we say. If that president we want, that's what we say. That's what we say. Oh, that's what we say. Oh, that's what we say. When nature calling, I'm an answer to the truth in the light. Oh, we say, what we say, oh, we say, what we say. Scholarship, that's what we say. For development, that's what we say. Reformation, that's what we say. For justice, that's what we say. For equality, thing among our people. Oh, we say, oh, we say, what we say. For human rights and justice, for safety and security. You won't be sitting overnight, keeping watch for the safety of your children. Why you have a government, why you have a government to keep you safe. Oh, we say, what we say, oh, we say. Transparency, transparency, transparency all over the place. Trust and just behavior. A government with integrity, a government with integrity, a government with no investment. Oh, we say, what we say, oh, we say, what we say, what we say, for justice, what we say, for development, what we say.
There's a song there that I believe a local artist did. Tell us the inspiration behind the song, Reverend WESAY.
What happened was, there's this kid, growing up in the Ivory Coast, attending the refugee school. I have not seen him in a long while. So I was on Facebook, and he sent me a message from Liberia, So when I saw the face, I said, "Oh, I probably know who this is." So I got back with him. He was excited. It's been long. So I asked, "What are you doing in Liberia?" He said, "Oh, I'm a musician." I said, "Wow, are you a musician? Really?" So I told him exactly what I was about to do. So he asked me, what is it that you want to do for our country? So the song over there, is my vision for our country. You know, justice, equality, healthcare, transparency, accountability, and all of that. So he just told me, like, just send me those words and those phrases. So I sent the message to him, and then he sent that song back to me. Oh, I was overwhelmed. I was like, this kid is so talented, and I love it. It's amazing. So if you listen to the song in its entirety, there's a rap at the end that is just amazing. That's just powerful right there, because they kind of added some spiritual message there, and all of that. Like, God should use Mr. WESAY, just like he used Moses and Joseph and all of that. So if we can forward that to the end, I think our viewers will really, really love that. That's amazing. I love that so much. I love listening to that.
I heard you confidently said you have your presence in all 15 counties. One, I want to know, what have you done for Liberia and the people of Liberia that makes you think you are going to be the next president of Liberia?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Garley. Let me say this. And I know my team, usually they don't like me to respond the way I want to respond, and I'm going to respond. Scripture tells us that it is better to receive heavenly reward than earthly reward. And I've done a lot in Liberia, and I did not do those things because I wanted to earn the votes or win the votes of the Liberian people. Those were humanitarian work that I did. And I'm not going to stand on this, sit on this platform and tell you I did this, I did that, and based on that, I deserve to be the next president of the people of Liberia. What I can say is, and I get that question a lot in Liberia, and I believe we need to look at that question another way. We should rephrase it to incumbents and ask them, because they have sat in the office for so long, X amount of time, and now they want you to give them a second chance. We should be asking them, what have you done for us while you were sitting in the office? But I noticed that in Liberia, traditionally, they put the burden on the incumbents. They want you to show what you have done. Okay? I think the question should be, what will you do for our people? So, again, I would not like to cancel the blessing that comes from above. If I'm not going to get a vote for that, so be it.
Well, Reverend, we say Liberians are confused. Former Minister of National Defense, Mr. Brandon Samuka, was denied his senatorial seat after winning it for misappropriation of public funds or the military funds. Now, former Minister of State Nathaniel McGill was also sanctioned by the U.S. government. He was suspended and subsequently resigned. Now we are hearing he's being supported on a hand to run for the senatorial bid in Margibi. What is your take on this?
Well, Mr. Garley, let me say this, and this is my view on these issues. With respect to Mr. Samuka, I believe that he's a convict. First of all, like what we live now in the biggest democracy, I believe, in the United States of America, he's a convict. He should not be seeking public office in the first place. How did the National Election Commission clear him to even participate in the election? That wasn't supposed to have happened in the first place. Okay. With respect to Nathaniel McGill, I believe that McGill was he was sanctioned under the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. Okay, so I believe he should not be seeking public office. This is a man who will not be able to carry on any transaction, okay, with persons in the United States, cannot travel to the United States. And you know how significant it is, how important it is for Liberia's success, when it comes to dealing with the United States of America. So I believe McGill should not He's doing the Magibians a disservice because they're going to be imposing hardship on themselves. Should they elect him as their senator? I think these people need to understand that until your names are clear, if you are sanctioned, in my view, if you are sanctioned or you have been convicted, like the case of Samukai, I don't think these people should be contesting or seeking public offices until they can be clear.
Okay, folks, if you just joining us, that's the voice of the Reverend Paul S. WESAY, presidential aspirant for the 2023 general election in Liberia. And folks, we just want to recognize Beatrice Dunn. She just visited the cash app. At this time, if it is okay with you, Mr. WESAY, Reverend WESAY, we want to open up the telephone lines. Perhaps Liberians have questions for you. And my caution to them here is, please be respectful of our guest. Ask your question. You will have 1 minute to ask your question. The number to call is on the screen there. It's 267-248-5295. 267-248-5295. That's the number to call. You can begin calling now. And as we wait for callers to call, Reverend, we say, what has been reported, President Weah left the country with 51-man delegation to Qatar with a few stops here and there, with a price tag of over 1.5 million United States dollars. What is your take on that?
Mr. Garley, I'm just from Liberia. To hear such a thing, it kind of pains me. As we speak tonight, there are people in agony in hospitals that don't have, money to pay for their medication. As we speak tonight, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of Liberians tonight that will go to bed on empty stomach, not because they want to fast, but because they can't afford it. But here we have a president who is completely out of touch with the Liberian people and is going to spend $1.5 million. This is absurd. This is further evidence again that, President Weah, I believe the time for the Liberian people to turn the page and to close the chapter on the Weah presidency, I believe is now. And let me say this. There are many who will doubt that, the coming 2023 presidential election, that Weah does have a chance. Weah doesn't have a chance to be the next, to continue a second term in Liberia. I was listening the last time to Gonglo. You asked a question and he was saying, those in the diaspora, they just think you're not on the ground. When you get on the ground, you see firsthand how disenchanted the Liberian people are. That was, when I first, begin to send, my team to those various counties, Mr. Garley, you'll be surprised without giving anybody a dime, like what politicians do to influence people. They just mentioned my name and who I was. You see the lines. People were ready. If election was that particular day, I'll be president now. I'm telling you. The Liberian people, they want to see a fresh voice. They want a fresh voice. They want somebody who is much more articulate. They want somebody who has a definitive plan to change the lives of the Liberian people. That's what they want. I always say that election is not about the singing and the dancing and the victory and what have you. After victory, are you going to be able to have a good paying job, to be able to put food on the table for your family? Are you going to be able to afford tuition fees for your children? When your family member get ill, will you be able to have money to send them to the hospital? That is why I have a robust plan to make sure that we construct chain of hospitals and clinics all across our country that are state of the art. Okay? And not just facilities that are just there. I want to focus on affordability and accessibility. So what that means is, if you have money, you don't have money, guess what? You can still access the services. And we'll talk about the money part. I want to make sure that we have access to safe drinking water. I want to make sure that by the end of my first term, the entire country is electrified. Our roads are paved and connected. I want to expand the Ravos International Airport. I have a plan to do all of that. Everything is written here in my book.
Reverend, we said, how will you pay for this? Where's the money coming from?
That's a good question there. Thank you for that question. Now, this is what I'm going to do, Mr. Garley. I have a plan to close all the loopholes that these corrupt politicians are using to exploit our country. Take, for instance, today, you have a lot of ghost names on payrolls. That's why I have a plan to have to create a more centralized payroll system that, where even myself will be considered an employee, that I cannot manipulate that payroll and put any ghost name on there. We're going to make use of our biometric system to put all of the check and balances in place.
We said that is not enough. Liberia's problem is too complex, and we can't keep baking our way to development. If the international community does not help us, we don't get money. Are you saying closing loopholes alone is enough to transform the Liberia that you so desire?
Mr. Garley, with the resources we have in our country, we are only 5 million people, give and take. All we need is a good manager. All we need is a God-fearing leader. Okay? And we can achieve so much. And one of the things that I want to do, Mr. Garley, I want to make sure that we are investing into manufacturing in our country. Today, for instance, we're shipping raw materials overseas. Raw materials, the iron ore, the timber, okay, the rubber. Why don't we negotiate with, purchasers or our international partners to open factories right at home and put our people to work? Guess what? Hundreds of thousands of Liberians will be earning, income to be able to sustain their families.
Reverend, we say, I'm pretty sure you've done your research. You're a very sound businessman. You talk about the development of roads, the construction of roads. You talk about the electrifying of the entire country. Have you attached a cost to it? How much would that cost?
Well, from what my finance team has been working on, we have to, first of all, we have to grow our GDP, Mr. Garley, which is the monetary value of the goods and services produced domestically. Every country that has ever become a great country, like China, for instance, your country will never be great because of what you import. Your country can become great because of what you manufacture, what you produce. That is why we're going to harness the soil, invest in agriculture. We're going to invest in manufacturing. We want to grow food domestically, because I also have a plan to cut import by 85% by the end of my first term in office. So take, for instance, right now we have challenges with rice. What do you think is going to happen if we are producing rice at home? Anybody in bringing rice in the country, you have competition. Simple economics tells you that whenever there's competition, it drives down prices. And that means more money in the pocket of Liberians. So I believe with all of these plans in place, if these politicians will work with me, Mr. Garley, and execute these plans, I believe Liberia, it won't be long. Liberia will become so prosperous, will become the beacon of hope in Africa and the envy of democracy in Africa.
Well, the answer is still vague. You still haven't said to us a dollar amount. You say your finance people are in the works, but hold that thought. Rather. Let us go to the telephone line. We have a 919 number. Hello, caller. Tell us your name.
Yeah, Ashford, how you doing?
I'm better than good. To God be the glory. Tell us your name, sir.
My name is Morris Johnson. I'm calling from North Carolina.
Okay, 1 minute, please. Ask a question.
Yeah, I just have a question for your studio guest. Why is it where he's from? Why he can be a representative or senator before he ascends to get to be a president?
Thank you. We have another caller. Then we'll go back to you, Reverend. We said 445. Tell us your name.
Yeah, as for this is James. The other caller just asked the question I wanted to ask.
Okay.
And that is, River G is a challenged county. bad roads, insufficient infrastructure, the school system. I'm told recently one of the schools in there actually did well because a Liberian from here, peace be to his ashes, built a free school or something like that, either in Riverside or in River G. The county lacks quality education. You have come to America, you've achieved all of the education, all the struggles you went through in Abidjan and everywhere else. What is wrong with going back to River G, to give back the revenue to River G and continue to replicate that into other counties, on the larger scale, and getting yourself ready for the presidency?
Thank you.
Instead of jumping now to the presidency. Number two, I just want to ask you, what's the cost of all of these beautiful things you want to do? 3 years here, agriculture. You never attach $1 value to any. How can we trust you?
Thank you, sir. Reverend WESAY?
Thank you so much. I will take the first question from the brother. He said, "Why not? What should I run for representative also?" This is the question. I get this question a lot. I know also that politicians, get this question a lot. Now, let me say this to you. There's a need right now for somebody to fill the vacancy of the Liberian presidency. That's what I believe, that our nation is in a state of emergency. We need a president, a commander-in-chief. Now, you being a representative, you just won't vote. You just won't vote. The masses are just, bunch of corrupt individuals. You're not going to accomplish anything. And then with the second brother talks about River G, lack quality education and all of that. Now, let me say this here. I've done a lot of extensive charity work all across Liberia. My brother, let me say this to you. Charity alone will not solve our problems. Charity alone will not solve our problems. It is time that our government, because when you look at all of these things, these are public good. Now, in economics, there's something called private good and public good. Public goods don't have the excludability principle attached to them. Now, if as an investor, as a businessman, if I build private schools over there, there's a lot of costs. I have to pay teachers. I have to do all of that. And meanwhile, the lawmakers, the representatives, the senators, they are stealing the money. They are doing nothing. But I should take my personal money and go and just invest that into. How long can you keep doing that? It is time that our government should own up to its responsibility. And that is why I believe that what we need right now is a commander-in-chief who will take the mantle of leadership and usher us in the era where the government can be responsible rather than being irresponsible, by abandoning its responsibility. And that's why I'm running for the office of the presidency come 2023.
How do you rate President George Weah and his government?
Well, with the Weah administration, Mr. Garley, just from seeing the country the way it is, just remember, how many years has it been now? Almost 18 years now since the war has been over. There's no improvement. I went to Monrovia. There's nothing I saw that I can say, oh, this is nice. There's nothing. There's nothing. People are starving. People cannot afford their hospital bills. There are places, Mr. Garley, not far from even just outside Monrovia. You don't have a tower. You don't have electricity. There's no water, and you have bunch of politicians going all around the places. They want to be elected. They're building hand pumps and all of those things. I think it's about time that we step aside and allow those who I believe have the country at heart to ascend, to power and move this country in the right direction. With the Weah administration on a scale from 1 to 5, I will give them a 1.5.
If you were to credit President Weah for anything since his ascendancy to the presidency, or 5 years now, what would it be?
Well, Just one thing I can remember.
What is
The
that?
dual citizenship. That's it. Once a Liberian is always a Liberian. That's all. I think that was a goal in that was a goal that he struck. I firmly believe in that because we left the country not because of our parents were wealthy or whatever. We left the country because of war, and I believe that if any Liberians watching me right now who believe that they have what it takes, to lead in any area in our country, they should be given the chance. It should not be denied because
Our,
they
our,
go other
our
citizenship.
kids want to go to school. Our brothers and sisters want to go to school. What about the tuition-free studies at the University of Liberia? What about the feeder roads that have been built under his administration? Don't you think he deserves some credit?
Well, Mr. Garley, for me, as a real estate professional, I look at quality. I look at quality. The education aspect of it, you can have a president who just stands and say, oh, there's free education. The fact that you say it's free doesn't make it free. Teachers have to be paid. Look at those schools. Look at the University of Liberia. There's no library or laboratory facilities. Our schools should have access to have unlimited internet access so that our students can be able to go into the computer lab and conduct research. Now they say they carry on something called e-learning. You got to be kidding me. These people have to have computers, but they expect students to choose between buying data, to conduct research on the phone, or whether they should go and buy food to eat. Teachers are underpaid or not paid at all in some instances. We can look at other. This is a joke. This is the 21st century. This is Africa's oldest independent nation, for God's sake. Look at Ghana. Ghana is getting way ahead of us. We should be, these other countries should be looking to Liberia to lead. We are always in the back. I had the privilege of traveling around the region to Sierra Leone, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, and Mr. Garley. Liberia is at the bottom. All we have a bunch of politicians enriching themselves. They see public service as a means of freeing their families from poverty at the expense of the majority. That has to change. And the way we can change that is by electing a leader who is God-fearing, who will make sure that the resources of our country, each and every Liberian can equally benefit from those resources. And that is why I'm running as for the presidency. And I believe, without any doubt, when the votes are counted, I will be the next president of the Republic of Liberia.
We're going to save this recording, and we're going to go back to the telephone line. We have a 612 number. Hello, caller. Tell us your name.
My name is Michael Blady. I'm calling from Broken Park, Minnesota.
Michael, welcome to the show. It's been a minute, and go ahead with your question.
All right. I have a quick, let me just go to the question. Reverend, we've seen a lot of you guys come up and want to just be president. Don't you think you should start tackling issues that can benefit the country instead of just want to be president? Like, for example, if you make and fight to help and make superintendents elected positions in our country, where you from River G, your people can vote you in, your job you will do in River G, the rest of the country will look at you and say, but if Reverend can do this in River G, it means he can do that for the rest of the country. Don't you think there are more pressing issues you can tackle instead of just want to be president?
Thank you. And before you answer that, we also have Mr. James Konya here. He said, what do you make of your two senators from River G and their work in Liberia? And Ms. Grace Goa is also on here, and she says, what will you do about the rape and abuse of women in Liberia? So in addition to the caller, you can also answer those questions.
Thank you so much. Well, to the caller, I believe he wasn't listening earlier. He came in late. This is not ambition to say, oh, I just want to be president. The reason why we elect people who just want to be president and we end up being disappointed is that this is not ambition. For me, this is not ambition. You come to understand that people who just want to be president, they are desperate. Those are people that will do anything to get elected. You know, those are people that will, you know, throw anybody under the bus to get ahead. That is why you can see that I'm not desperate. I am definitely not desperate. I am relaxed. And then let me say this. There is nothing in the Constitution that says that you have to be a representative first or you have to be a senator first before you aspire for the Liberian presidency. There is not a constitutional provision that says that. And like I said earlier again, our country is in a state of emergency, okay? And what we need to do is to respond with a sense of urgency. Now, there's a lady that asked about rape. Now, let me say this. I will be tough. I will be the only president who will be tough on crime. If you want to be protective, you want to make sure that your daughters can be tucked in at night and sleep in peace and not pieces. Okay? Vote for Paul WESAY. That's what I said earlier. National security is going to be my number one priority. Under my watch, no Liberian, no woman, no girl will ever be raped. No woman will ever be violated without justice being served. That is why I have a plan to rebuild our police, rebuild the military, you know, put in place the proper mechanism and tighten, you know, the punishment, increase the punishment on crimes, such heinous crimes, people who commit atrocities like rape. I believe these are people that should go to jail. But in Liberia today, we don't have a database system where we can ID these criminals. So you can rape somebody in Grand Gide and you move to Monrovia, nobody knows who you are. You know, we have to build systems. We have to maintain databases where people are fingerprinted and photographed and put in a newspaper so that person is labeled as sex offender. But we don't have all of these things in place. So when you go again, and this is what I would say to you, my Liberian people listening tonight. I believe that we are at a crossroad. We are at a crossroad. The decision that we will make in this election will determine the future and the destiny of our nation. This is what Americans will refer to as the most consequential election of our lifetime. So this election is not about me wanting to be president. It is not about me. If I've seen somebody in a race who can actually execute all of these plans and this vision, I believe I will have stepped aside. Let me be honest with you. I enjoyed being in the private sector. I love it. Where, you know, I can travel, I can take my children on vacation, you know, and all of that. Mr. Garley, let me be honest with you. This is a difficult job. When we went to Liberia, man, you see, you know, we have a whole lot of security in the compound. I mean, you can't even step out. Like, you go to the store, like, you know, you have security like everywhere. I'm selling my privacy, so to speak. I'm surrounding my privacy because I believe it's all worth it. It's all worth it. So this is not about me. If you make this election about me, your approach will be completely wrong. Our country is in a very difficult state right now that no politician, it will take the divine hand of God and a leader who has principles, a leader who has a conviction to actually steer us out of this. Under this president, how many deaths, unexplained death, unsolved murder? People are still hungry and starving. We're not making any progress whatsoever. Our economy is already down the drain. You should elect a president who will rebuild our economy, create jobs, put system in place that our children can have access to quality education, quality health care, and above all, a president who will protect you. I will make sure that I secure our borders, that you don't have drug dealers coming all, and there's drug pouring all in our country. The young folks, they are on drugs. You see 15 years or 12 years, they're on drugs. Anybody can destabilize our country right now. That's the complete recipe for another civil war right now. I'm telling you. We have to have a president who has a plan, a president who will be, much more focus on ensuring that national security is his number one priority. The economy, Liberian economy, creating jobs are his priorities. All right.
Now you have two folks here. One is saying, is it because of the need or the vacancy that you're running, or you said you were called by God? Number one. Number two, then we have Charlene Domash. She said, what is your net worth? And where can we read about your work? In other words, do you have a website? They want to read more about the Reverend WESAY. People have, they're eager for change. They need change agent, but they want to know more about you.
Well, you can Google me. That's the best place to go. Go to Google. Google is not Facebook where you just put information. So you can read about me on Google. You see my work, what I've done. And what's the next question again? What is my net worth? I don't know how you do that, but do your research. Research me.
Now, Reverend, what, if anything, will you do differently from President Weah?
Several things, Mr. Garley. What I will do differently from President Weah is, first of all, one of the things that I believe that's unique about me and about my company is that I'm not going to make false promises. I will not promise you things that I can deliver. That speaks to my character. Okay. And number two, I will not kill auditors. I need the auditors to audit. I will be ordering a complete audit of the Liberian government to see what what I'm inheriting, what's available to me. What I'm going to do differently is I am going to give the Liberian people justice. I will give them justice. The Bible says what? Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. Now, we went over the whole lot of murder all across the country, unsolved murder. I'm going to make sure the Liberian people will get justice. They will get justice. All these big hands, days, all of that. If you want to see justice, that you want to see those big hands going to court, Paul WESAY is your guy. I am your guy standing in front of you here. I'm going to make sure that what I will do differently is I'm going to invest in the manufacturing in Liberia. We're going to have products that we made in Liberia, rubber products, you name it. We're going to open factories all across our country. Okay. I'm going to make sure that we're growing our food domestically. Look at what's happening in Ukraine right now. Should that spill and becomes World War III, ships will stop coming to our borders. Our people are going to starve to death. That's a national security concern. A whole lot, Mr. Garley. I will electrify our entire country. I want to make sure that I build chain of hospitals and clinics all across our country. I want to make sure that, we have, for instance, our infrastructure. They are all old. I want to make sure that zinc round houses, no Liberian can ever live in zinc round houses. We're going to make sure that we have government funding available. All the zinc round houses, nuclear town, all of that, we will make funding available to improve those structures, so people can have a better life. I want to make sure that we can have micro loans available. Those small businesses, the motorcyclists. Can you imagine a woman I met at the Omega market? She told me she's been selling a bag of farina, Mr. Garley, for 5 years. A bag of farina. How is that lady going to be able to purchase land? How is she going to be able to afford a bag of cement? Look at the price of cement. $8, $9, some places. I want to make sure that building materials, are affordable. I want to make sure that, for instance, in Liberia today, Mr. Garley, somebody can sell you a land that they have sold to somebody 1954 or 2 days ago. There's no way for you to check all of that. I want to make sure that our deeds are digitized. We have databases like here in the United States where you can search, closings are done with a closing attorney rather than some individual just stand on the street and tell you, for Napo here, this and that. No. We have to be serious about our own future, Mr. Garley. We cannot just continue putting these people there with the hope that, they're going to get it. Go in, and this is what I would say. You can go and try any of the other people. Tomorrow, you're going to come back to the same old thing. You start protesting here and there. You know, when God sends you a leader, like let's take for instance, David. When you read 1 Samuel 17, there was a Goliath. The Bible says that for 40 days, Goliath taunted the children of Israel. Nobody could fight them. But little David, the son of Jesse, the Bible says that his father sent him to the battlefield to carry food to his brothers. And there he was, Goliath. Nobody could fight him. Those days, kings could go to war. Saul was the king. Saul could not fight him. David offered to fight Goliath because the name and the reputation of God was at stake. And people, they begin to mock David. Okay? They begin to mock David, even his own siblings. They were saying, go home. Leave from here. You know? Because David did not have experience in that kind of warfare. But David made a statement. He said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine to challenge the army of the living God? Long story short, David was victorious. So this is what I'm getting at. I may not look like your traditional politician that you are accustomed to. I may not fit the pedigree of, corrupt behavior, because most of the time we tend to somehow, I don't know, it's a spare or something. We'll always end up voting in the wrong individuals, and then we come again crying. But this is what I believe. I believe that the time for Liberia to rise is now. The time for the mantle of leadership to be passed down to a new generation of Liberians who will usher us into the future of promise and hope is now.
Well, folks, if you're just joining us, we're almost about time to wrap up. We want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Princess WESAY, the wife of our guest tonight. Thanks for sharing your husband with this platform tonight. And folks, now, Reverend, shortly we will be asking for your closing statement. What are you hearing on the ground? Tell us the pain, because now you live in Liberia. So what do you see on a daily basis when you walk the streets of Monrovia, when you walk the streets of Mount Barclay, when you walk the streets of Grand G, River G, and other parts of the country?
Well, Mr. Garley, it is so much disheartening. It's sad to see, our country after 14 years of civil war, that we had to see our people still living in such a condition. Like, for instance, I always go to the Omega market, for instance. You have trash, you have garbage all over the place, and you have people sitting by the garbage and they are eating. Can you, and these elected officials, the senators, the representatives, they are driving by there in their pride in big cars. It doesn't bother them. Meanwhile, we have able-bodied men walking the street. They have nothing to do. Why don't we locate a landfill, okay? Employ the latest technology to manage our trash. Put those young men to work. We can put garbage bins in various locations so that we educate our folks to put their trash in a garbage bin, and we'll have trucks that come, periodically to pick up the garbage bin and take it to the dump site. The country is so filthy, Mr. Garley. At night, you drive around, it's so sad. The Bible doesn't lie. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish. That is why I came up with my vision, building a better Liberia if I'm president, so that if I'm elected, I won't go the next day, excuse me, what do we need to do now? No, I already know what I want to do. If you want to know what I'm going to do, I believe you should go on Amazon and purchase this book. I believe if you see, even if you can read, there are pictorials in here, and when you flip the pages, you will have an idea of exactly what we want to do for Liberia.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time, the Reverend Dr. Paul WESAY. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you again, and have a great night. Thank you to your supporters, and thanks for what you're doing in Liberia. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. And folks, that's all the time we have to be with you tonight. God willing, we'll be here on Friday for the political suck again. between Liberia and, of course, societal ills. Until then, folks, Father God, we want to give you praise, we want to give you honor, thank you, we magnify your name. Thanks for giving all the strength to be here tonight. Until then, folks, this has been yours truly, the brother who doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely the stronger of the lion. Get us sit to Pagiki, Seven Pro down here, put more to that Jeep, Ashford the Giant, the mastermind, the golden voice of Liberia, the doctor of law, Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire. Have a good night.